Okay, can everybody hear?
Yes, now we hear you. Thank you.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. Right, so tonight, to be heard, you have to go to the microphone. So if you just come on up, microphone's right there. We can pass this microphone to you, but let's make sure everybody gets heard. And so to just speak in the audience, we won't be able to get that in the recording. So really important to have the microphone. So let me pass the microphone over to Michael first, and you can do some introductions.
Yeah, thanks, Ron, and thanks for having us here this evening. Mike Herbert, managing partner and co-founder at Lightshift Energy. I have been a battery emitter. Been a battery practitioner for my whole career. I've been working on battery installations since about 2008 with the Department of Defense, looking at various applications of the technology then. Backup power, renewable integration, peak shaving, you name it, kind of looking at maximizing the value of these projects for domestic military installations. The technology was very different, very expensive at that time. It has evolved a ton over the last 20 years, and it's gotten much better, much more cost effective, much more durable, and much safer. And since that time, I also spent about 6 years working for the federal government, doing energy storage policy for the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, working on kind of ways to integrate storage into the electric grid, streamline interconnection processes, and make some market reforms that were kind of geared at, again, kind of maximizing the value of the technology, removing barriers to its effective use, and ensuring that federal policy is kind of keeping up with power markets, and technology, and opportunities for storage, and the evolution of the batteries themselves. Leveraged all of that experience at Lightshift Energy. We spent a lot of time. I'll spend more time talking about the company and why being at meetings like this is important for us. But spend a lot of time kind of leveraging market opportunities, doing kind of detailed analytics, figuring out the best places and sizes, use cases, operational kind of paradigms for the projects, and really trying to kind of, I guess the real development thesis is to, strategically site batteries, maximize their value to the utility, to the community, to the broader kind of regional power markets, and kind of ensure their effective integration. So we'll talk more about that this evening, and happy to answer any questions. But glad to be here. Want to hear everybody's thoughts, concerns, and that's the point of this meeting. So we look forward to the conversation.
Good evening, everyone. Laura Coriel, Director of Marketing. I have been with this company for about 3 years at this point, and have been working on developing our Vermont portfolio throughout those three years. On the development side of things, but also kind of on the personal side of things, talking to utilities and some businesses about the benefits of energy storage. My background, I've kind of been bouncing around central Vermont for the past 15 years or so, aside from a 3-year stint in the area in California. I'm from Pittsfield, small town next to Killington, and I live with my family now in Stowe. I'm on the Renewable Energy Vermont Board, this issue and come from a policy background. I worked for the governor of Vermont for a while, Governor Sean, governor. And at the time we were really leaders in solar and renewables, and we still are, but at that time we were not just per capita solar leaders, but in general. I think other states have really caught up to us in that, and have leaned into supportive policies for renewable energy. Similar story with storage. We were very much first movers on energy storage. That's to the state, which is great. But Vermont and New Hampshire are the only states in the region that don't have storage from a policy perspective. And so I do think that our neighbors and the rest will catch up to us in storage very quickly. I have about 5 years experience directly with energy storage, and just think it's a fantastic technology, and enjoy talking about it, especially kind of the value stack and the benefits. Thank you so much for your time.
Hey everybody, my name is Joe Levitt. I'm Ledger's Chief Technology Officer. I grew up in Burlington, graduated from Burlington High School. From there, I joined the Navy. I was a submarine officer, served aboard USS Dallas, and then spent the rest of my Navy career involved in submarine design and construction. Worked on the construction of Virginia-class submarines, and the design of Columbia-class submarines. So the majority of my career has been around design, construction, mission critical, safety critical systems. And today, my responsibility is at Lightshift. I joined Lightshift 5 years ago. I help deploy what I consider is a critical resource. And my responsibility there is to design and build the systems. So I'm here tonight to talk to you about how we safely design, build, and operate the systems. I'm going to turn it over now to Paul Rogers. As Ron mentioned, Paul, with disclosure, works with ESRG, a company that we work with that provides services to us to consult on energy storage, safe design, safe deployment, safe operations. While they do support us in these areas, they have their own independent views, and he is here as a resource for you to answer your questions on behalf of his engineering experience. This is great.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. As you said, my name is Paul Rogers with the New York City Fire Department, where I do is primarily in office material. Very involved with codes and standards, which promote safety. Before leaving New York City, I wrote the New York City code for battery energy storage system coming into the state of New York, and that was the basis for what we used for the MPA that we have here today, which your state actually has as their code, which is a really good gold standard moving forward. I'll explain some of the things that we really, really important for safety. And our company is made up of former firefighters, inspectors, plan review people, actually operations people that have come to incidents. So we have the whole gamut there from the beginning to the end, from cradle to grave. And we're there just to make sure we are the guardrails, because the code is very, very tactical. I'm on these committees. I know what they mean, and we want to make sure that everyone can actually understand how to actually utilize the codes properly so we can get the safety. So I'll leave it back to you.
Thank you. Can I ask Adrian, would you step up and how many people got a copy of the handouts from Monahan to Farm? Great. Let me go grab some, and I'll kind of walk around for those who don't have a copy. Welcome.
Thanks. I'm Adrian. I won't tell you where I'm from originally, but it's New Jersey. First time I drove up through Vergennes, there was a sign outside of town in 1980. That's the smallest city in the United States, and painted, I believe, red, white, and blue. So I've been in Vermont ever since. I'm an attorney partner at the firm of Monahan Spar, where I do the largest representing the state. And we do a fair amount of work for the PUC, the Public Utility Commission. You'll be hearing that term a lot tonight, I suspect. The memo is pretty straightforward and easy, but I wanted to just kind of go through some of what I believe are the policy reasons. And if you can't hear me, let me know. Sometimes the mic's this way. Some of the policy reasons why the statutory framework is set this way. It's set this way because the legislature, in its wisdom, decided that it wanted to balance the competing interests and take some of the powers away from municipalities. Municipalities in Vermont receive their power solely from the state. Other states, they have vested authorities called rule. In Vermont, it's all comes directly from the state. So what the state giveth, the state can take it away. So they did that by saying, okay, we're going to give these public utilities to us, to the state, to the Public Utility Commission are important enough that we want to centralize the decision making and equalize that throughout the state, or have it consistent throughout the state. So what they did is they took it away from the municipalities, away from local zoning, away from the ability to have on the ground impact. And they said, we're going to balance that out by giving the municipalities some amount of say in the process. They get an automatic seat at the table twice. And that is city council can weigh in on policy decisions, and the planning commission, the city planning commission, as well as the regional planning commission can weigh in on planning commission and whether something is in line with the city plan. So if there is an application filed with the PUC, both the city council as well as the planning commission have the ability to enter an appearance. Hopefully they're both on the same page when they do. Sometimes they're not because they have competing interests, even though it's the same municipality. I haven't been apprised of any way that the city is interested in participating one way or another at this point in this case, so I'm coming to this fresh like you. But where the city has a role is because they took this power and invested it within the state. They said, okay, we're going to give you an automatic seat at the table, and we're going to give due consideration to your concerns. You're allowed to participate as a party. You're allowed to call witnesses, and you're allowed to present evidence. And ultimately, the PUC tends to give quite a bit of weight to municipal entities because they represent the entire municipality, as opposed to an individual landowner or even a group of landowners. When the entire town or when the entire city comes in, that bears weight. And for the same reason, and I can't speak for these folks because I haven't talked to anybody sitting at the table here, but generally speaking, it's of interest for developers to try and work with the town or work with the city in order to reach a resolution that is best favorable, whatever that resolution is for everybody regarding particular projects. So there's often give and takes in these types of projects to go through. Sometimes they don't go through, sometimes they go through, but they not the way originally planned. So there's all different kinds of permutations. That's what I got for you. I don't know if I don't think I'm going to take questions, but I'm certainly happy.
There may be some questions.
Yeah. Yeah, sure. I'm happy to do that. I know Ron wanted me to have here to, I'm here just tonight anyway to call balls and strikes, just to tell you what I think the law says. We'll make disagree with that, but everybody's entitled to their own. So thank you very much.
That's great. Thank you, Ed. You need to come up and to the microphone.
My name is Mel Hawley.
Member and resident. Yeah. That's okay. Okay. My name is Mel Hawley. Other than that, it works okay. It's a very simple question. Yeah, so again, my name is Mel Hawley. I'm a city council member and resident of Vergennes. My simple question is, I just want to get some clarity that our zoning regulations state public utility power generating plants and transmission facilities regulated under 30 VSA 248 should not be regulated by regulations. I'm assuming, and just please clarify, this is not a generating plant nor a transmission facility. It doesn't seem like, but is this a battery storage facility? Does that fall under this as well? That municipalities cannot regulate even a storage facility.
So, Mel, what I want to, I'll answer your question this way, which is, it doesn't matter what the zoning regulations. They're what's called the legal term preempted. They're preempted by the state statute and by the upper rules. Preempted stands for saying a waiver period. So, yeah. Great. Sorry, you said something. Preempted. Preempted. Yes, sir. Yeah, legislative change the law. That's not up to us here. Well, no, I mean, that's not what I said. What I said, wait. You said we have no. But you said, I said, not the Lord. As a participation within the law, okay, that's given a lot of weight by the planning commission and the city council. You want to change the law, which is kind of like wanting to do that. Which is not clear. Stand with the ones who want to say that. That's a policy question, not a legal question. In the legal context, you have the ability to city council or the planning commission here a party for the position here is maybe at the end of the town where the actual GMP substation. We got we're gonna get there. Take your time. We're gonna work up the way and get the few names.
Great. Okay. So we just ditched the microphones. You think it's okay? All right. So let's just talk really loud. Okay. We will keep soldiering on here. Do you want to start? Happy to do something here.
Yeah, can you pull up the slides we have? And I think these slides will be made available to folks afterwards. And we're happy to share, contact information as well. This is about dialogue, so. And we did have a last minute switcheroo on roles here, so forgive our reliance on our notes a little bit. Our lead developer on the project had kind of a personal obligation that he couldn't step away from, but kind of introduce myself a little bit already, but I think it's important to introduce the company and how we think about these things. At its very simplest terms, we develop, build, own, and operate batteries. The same thing that most of you probably have in your pocket right now, might have in your purse, probably have sitting on your desk at home, maybe parked in your garage. They're lithium-ion batteries, right? That's what we're building. The big difference between those things that you are touching every day and what we are proposing to build here is the size and the life expectancy. These are 20+ year infrastructure assets, which means when we are proposing to develop one in a community like this, we look at it as a long-term partnership, and we want to hear what you guys have to say. You know, this is essential to the success of any project. Hearing your concerns, mitigating what we can, and identifying ways to offer kind of transparency as we go through the development of these projects, education to ensure there's no misinformation being circulated about these projects, and making sure that we can do whatever we can to hear and address concerns. You know, as a company, our core values are innovation, collaboration, and trust. That is exactly how we conduct ourselves, and that is how we enter conversations like this. We want to hear from folks. We want to collaborate on the designs of our systems. We've done that in multiple instances in Vermont already. We have a couple projects in construction right now, so we can speak to how we've done that. And we want to make sure that, you know, you can reach out to us and talk to us at any point over the course of the evolution of the development of this project. You know, on the innovation side, you know, kind of the other way that we think about batteries, we have a very kind of sophisticated approach to analytics, engineering, design, and technical capabilities inside the company. That really kind of underscores the thesis that I identified earlier, which is identifying the places on the grid where you can deploy these projects, maximize their value, and ensure that, you know, the communities, the state of Vermont, and everybody that's, you know, kind of pushing policies and everything that Laura kind of referred to in her opening forward are going to benefit from them as best as possible. You know, that often leads to kind of tucking these batteries into corners of the grid where you've got a lot of renewable energy. Maybe you've got active constraints on the substation, on the lines going into the substation. Maybe you have really expensive transmission and capacity charges like are present here in New England, and the batteries are a way to mitigate that. It's a way to obviate the need for, you know, building a diesel generator or a gas generator or something like that. So, you know, kind of identifying these sweet spots on the grid where you can interconnect the project effectively, you know, stack those benefits, optimize its operations, and really kind of maximize the value of that asset as a cost-saving resource, as a clean energy resource. So that's how we operate. And in finding those places on the grid, you know, it often means that you're connected on the distribution system. You know, this is kind of the wooden poles and wires that you see all over town, right? Not the giant like steel, you know, towers and high voltage lines you see running across the entire state. And that's because, you know, putting them in places where there is electric load, putting them in places where that infrastructure exists allows us to really do that value stacking. You know, if you just connect it to the high voltage system, all you can do is kind of charge and discharge the batteries, and you're relatively limited in the services they can provide. You're not really helping with renewable integration. You're not really offering kind of resilience, reliability, value. You can't offer backup power. You can't really eliminate the need for, you know, additional like upgrades to the distribution system, upgrades to the substation, you know, other infrastructure that might need to be built if that battery wasn't there. So you really lose a lot of value if you're just building a giant battery and sticking it in a field somewhere versus kind of like finding the right spot and the right size, and the right use case for that system on the that project on the distribution system. Because of that, we also do a lot of work with municipal utilities. A lot of our work around New England, which I'll speak to in a second, is with municipal utilities. There are kind of opportunities to work with these municipalities, and often the projects that we work on are kind of sited within the city limits. And so, we are often confronted with these type of dialogues, like figuring out what the concerns are, whether, one place works for a project versus another one, and kind of how to identify, within that jurisdiction where the best places are to put things. And we do that through our analytics process as well. We often have access to grid data. We have access to all the parcel data, planning and zoning information about the parcels that we build on. And so not only trying to find the places on the grid that work from an electrical perspective and from a benefits perspective, but also from a development perspective. We look for parcels that are zoned industrial. We look for parcels that are already cleared. We're going to minimize environmental impact. We look for places where the development potential and the benefits of the project are going to be best. Speaking a little bit to the track record of the organization, I don't as the founder of the company, I don't think about our success as being, building as many batteries as we can possibly build. The success is not so much about what we're doing, but rather how we do it. And I think that is represented in, some anecdotes about some of the projects that we've built in the past. Our first project that we ever built was in the city of Danville, Virginia. We worked very collaboratively with the utility there, with the municipality, figured out a good place to put the project, how we're going to operate it, what size it would be, when it would get built, how it would be designed. That project was a big success. We are now building our second project in Danville, Virginia. We are now working on our third project in Danville, Virginia after that. The replication of these projects in the communities that we work is something that we couldn't be prouder of as an organization, because it really is a testament to how we go about developing these projects, having these conversations, and listening to folks in the communities that we work. Groton, Massachusetts, which I'm going to talk about in a second, another one. Second project we ever built was in Groton, Massachusetts. Quickly built second project there, and we are now working on a third project. And so, I think the ability to do repeat projects within these jurisdictions, satisfy their concerns, deliver something that's highly beneficial to those communities, speaks volumes to how we do this, as a company, and not just, what it is we're doing. And we take our reputation very seriously. We take these engagements very seriously. And that's frankly why we're here this evening, to have this dialogue and to make ourselves available as the development of this project evolves. If you can go to the next slide. Just a snapshot of some of our work in New England. We are very active in New England. Laura and Joe are Vermonters, our co-founders from Massachusetts. Most of our development has been, in New England. We very much think of this. We're headquartered in Virginia, and we do work in the Mid-Atlantic as well, but we have found most of our success in New England, primarily in Massachusetts and Vermont. So, we consider this kind of home for the company as well. We've done cooperative internship programs with UVM. We maintain office space at the Vermont Center for Emerging Technologies, and have consistently grown kind of roots in the state over the last 6+ years. In addition to our own team, we also have a deep bench of, contractors, consultants, attorneys, and other folks that we use locally to help ensure, the success of these projects. And I think New England also, it's worth noting the kind of the ambition of the clean energy goals in New England. Laura touched on this in her opening, but Massachusetts and Vermont have gone all in on clean energy, and so no surprise that that is where most of our projects are in New England. And these things they're essential. Like storage is essential for the integration of clean energy into the electric grid, especially local clean energy. And Laura will talk more about kind of Vermont specific legislation and how it'll help achieve its goals. Are we doing questions? I have not timed it, but let's. I think we can stay here as late as you guys want. So. Okay. Well, I frankly think this is important, guys, and so you give us our turn, and we'll give everybody their turn as well. But we just want to make sure that the information is in the public domain.
Recording stopped.
Yeah, you're not even working with Vergennes powers, wasting waiting for the energy. I mean, this.
Wait. Finish up here. Why don't you give yourselves? Can you do it in the 15 minutes?
Maybe. I don't think that'll leave time for Paul at the end, and I think his part is particularly important because that speaks to the safety of these systems. But
these questions.
I haven't. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, this is our opportunity. So I'd like to air as much of this as possible this evening. So bear with us. It's important. That's why we're here.
The recording was stopped, just for the record.
Understood. I have no idea.
Recording in progress.
Okay, that's great.
So anyways, the last point on the slide, like Vermont, Massachusetts, all these states are adopting storage quickly. They're not doing it recklessly. Like there are very exacting standards for what it is we do. There is a permitting process that gets very deep into the weeds of these projects and looks at everything that we do. And Laura's going to talk more. I mean, we opened with a description of that process. Laura will talk more about it as it pertains to our project specifically and all the diligence that we have to do and demonstrations that we have to make throughout this permitting process. It is not a light lift, and it is not something that we take lightly either. Let's go to the next slide. I think we missed.
Just be slightly safer.
Okay, well, that'll speed things up. The second slide, I actually think Joe might have a picture of it as well. One of our projects in Groton, Massachusetts sits adjacent to an elementary school. It is there because the town and the utility asked us to put it there. It is there so that they didn't have to build a diesel generator next to that elementary school. That project was, the site for that project was selected to maximize its value. Its clean energy potential, its resilience and backup power potential, its ability to do peak shaving and save the town a ton of money. And that was kind of like decided by the town. And we went through kind of a very kind of detailed process with them as well, introduced the project very early, as we're doing here, talked to all the relevant stakeholders, executed collaborative design on the project, came up with a collaborative emergency response plan for the project, got sign off from the fire department.
Yes, for Zoom production. And according to the microphones aren't working there. I can hear it, but it's this little square. I can't make it bigger. Virginia Police Department is our second owner.
We're talking about an example project that we've done right next to an elementary school in Groton, Massachusetts. That site was selected by the town for the project. That project got a sign off by the fire department. Can we finish the presentation?
And give us many examples of that wonderful as
Is there a way to let them finish information? How much longer? How much longer than 2 hours? We want to make sure that the site I've got my results. And I think my Vergennes. That's why I've been associated with the Canton project.
No,
Not associated with that.
because we
Like
did.
the battery storage plant here when we got a header.
It has nothing to do with the generating plant.
Doesn't have much to do with anything.
No, it does.
I'd like to know why.
There's a lot of solar around Vergennes. Your substation,
What I just said.
your substation is getting overloaded. It offers those benefits to the substation in town. You would have to build more wires, expand the substation, and build a ton of other infrastructure without projects like this. It also offers cost savings for the utility to keep your electricity prices low. It's cheaper than gas, it's cheaper than diesel, and it offers a lot of the same benefits as these resources. It is geared towards making electric rates more affordable. That's what it does.
Can I say one thing about it? Is it's important. When you take a source of energy, whether it's solar generated, wind, or whatever, you transfer it to a battery. There is a loss changing from AC to DC. You've got to step it down. These transport electricity. Then you have to.
We're very
DC,
familiar with that.
convert it to AC and pump it back in at a higher voltage once again. You step it away, there's a line.
What's the point?
The point is, it's not that efficient as you're leading us to believe.
Electricity is very, very cheap in the middle of the night. The grid is not congested in the middle of the night. We charge these during off-peak when the grid is not constrained and when electricity is cheap, and then they get discharged during peak times when the grid is constrained, when electricity is tremendously expensive and gets more expensive and saves your utilities in the state of Vermont a bunch of money. It avoids the build out of additional, hold on. It avoids the build out of additional infrastructure that is not needed, additional gas and fossil fuel generation, additional transmission, and it mitigates all of these constraints on the grid. Yes, it does. Why?
So let me ask you this. Why are you choosing in
I described this a moment ago.
going in? I was a transmission system operator in
Okay.
on the biggest grid in this country.
Okay.
I'm
PJM.
choosing that with established with grid entry. Why are you not down at the other end of the country here, this block, and say, let's do it at the substation? It's already there.
There's no land there.
More profit for me.
I'm sorry, but that disregards something that I just said about connecting at distribution voltages and maximizing the value of these projects. If you're just connecting at transmission voltages, you're leaving a ton of value on the table because you're not mitigating constraints on the distribution system that are caused by local distributed generation. You're not avoiding expansion. Can I talk, please?
$25 gas. They shut it down. You know what they did? We started it right on because they want to pay a fortune.
I don't know why that's wrong.
It is right. What you're saying is, I need that you need to tap in right up behind this lady's property. You have generations down there.
Should we continue the presentation? Huh? I'd like to do the presentation because there's a lot of misinformation floating around here, and I'd like to mitigate.
Right. So you're here to present this information tonight. Sounds like, can we let them finish? Can we let them finish the presentation? You want the specifics? Okay. All right. So
What specifics would you like?
I'll talk about one.
Well,
No, we're talking. It's our turn.
I think what they want to hear is they appreciate. Here's what I'm hearing. I appreciate you've got some experience. You know what you're doing. Very credible company. I think what the community is most interested in is why did you choose Vergennes? Is this really the best location? Kind of what's in it for us? I mean, that's some of the questions I've heard. For us, why do we need this here? Why can't it be someplace else?
That's part of the presentation.
And
we're about to get there.
So you know, I did see a lot of feedback saying, and I've been feeding it to these guys. I think this is what you can expect of this meeting tonight. Yes, they did. It works. I understand they're getting to your. I'm sorry, but it's taking too long. But let's.
Our understanding of the concern very deep. A lot of underlying context, this misunderstanding of what this is, what it represents to this environment, concern about communities. We can address our answer and getting in front of that, and then we can have a dialogue. I'm not against having a dialogue. We're just trying to get that context under common understanding over this page.
All right. Let's talk about the benefits to Vermont, benefits to Vergennes. We have a whole section on safety. These are the brightest minds of the industry when it comes to safety. Please give them time and listen to them. They know it better than anyone.
Can we go for the next 10 minutes? Does that work for you?
That's fine. I mean,
okay.
Sure.
So let's go for like it's an hour. That work? Okay. Do our best. We'll do our best. Yeah.
do we have slides still? Because I'd like people to see what we're talking about here. I think it's important. Please bear with us. This information is for everybody. We're not trying to preach up here. We're trying to talk about the benefits of these systems and why we're designing and deploying them in the city of Vergennes.
Sure.
Why don't you stand up?
Okay, so let me try to describe similar projects in Vermont, which probably 6 or 7 that are operational. This kind of size, right? Roughly 5 megawatts connected at the distribution system. So as for moderator, as the moderator, we drive around and see large transmission projects. We're all we're paying for transmission that has been built many years ago. We're paying for transmission that's under construction, and we'll continue to pay for huge transmission. And rates are going up. It's a huge driver of our transmission costs. We look at the utilities are talking about. So the way that they're charged for the maintenance event on the transmission system, our transmission charges, is they measure the amount of energy that we use during times. So if we can use a battery to discharge during those times of peak demand, then we can save utility customers lots of money. That is Vermont utilities in Vermont. That is the main cost driver for this type of battery connected at the distribution system in Vermont. So that's benefit number 1. As a kind of coincident benefit to peak shaving, so we have the transmission benefit. This is also true for the distribution system. And I kind of alluded to this. So another huge rate increase for residential customers is distribution. So we are upgrading our substations, we're upgrading our feeders, we're paying for that as load growth proliferates with electric vehicles, and as solar has a great impact on the distribution system. So the more we can discharge a battery to shore up that infrastructure, the more money we're going to save. The third thing I want to highlight is this idea of energy arbitrage. So I think there's been some information that's been out there about how we charge the battery. So in this case, we would charge the battery from wholesale electricity. To give you an example of the differential, right, the way we charge the battery during the winter storm. Sorry, very hard to project. During the winter storm, during the 12th half of February, power prices were $1,000 a megawatt. We charge at $40 a megawatt, sometimes less. This is a huge difference. And power prices are another driver. So here operating the battery to reduce transmission charges, to shore up the distributed infrastructure, and to manage wholesale. So those are the ways that the battery is used to reduce costs for the ratepayers of that utility. There is some very much benefit for the rest of New England in reducing transmission charges, because the more batteries we have everywhere, the more of those types of batteries, the less transmission we need. And that means that we are investing less in very expensive transmission. Belco recently had a study from Long Range Transmission Plan that said we need more storage and flexible load management in our areas of concern, Vergennes within that northern area of concern. We are going to be paying hundreds of billions of dollars in transmission upgrades. So we use batteries to reduce so that we're not upgrading our grid. So that's the cost driver. Like if you go to the next slide, please. I do just want to hit on solar and fossil fuel argument here. So while our utilities are very clean, 100%, I don't think Jim is quite there, very close. These are not time-matched renewable energy prices. In times of peak demand, we are drawing energy from southern New England, where they burn gas and oil. A lot of oil very expensive. If we don't have batteries to shift times of solar to more valuable times of the grid, there's high fossil fuels, we are going to continue burning fossil fuels. As we can get more batteries, that's when we can really talk about turning off these having a major. We're also shoring up solar. So, as we mentioned, there is a lot of solar in the area. So our battery is actually to manage that stress on the distribution structure. Not upgrading subsystems. By doing so, we can allow for more solar houses, more solar in the area, so that we can get to this tier 2 renewable energy, very aggressive goal.
All right, I'm going to breeze through the 5 points of what I heard around introducing you to what battery systems are and how they're safe, and try to get this 10 over the call. But at least lay the foundation for sure a lot of the questions tonight. We can next slide, please. All right, so just really quickly, Mike covered this a little bit at the beginning. What is energy storage? What are these battery systems? Again, it's the same battery technology that you carry in your phones, that you have in your cars, that you have in your tools at a larger scale. The systems that we deploy are containerized systems. They start with cells that are sealed in aluminum canisters that then get put into modules that have monitoring, thermal management, thermal barriers that help us ensure the safety and isolation of anything that could ever happen inside of them. These models get put together in racks. These racks get put together in containers. On our site, we can containers that make up the system. The idea of the container is it's nice to it's self-contained. And we have systems in there that ensure that under all conditions, anything that ever happens in a container, we're unable to do all the preventative measures that we have that I certainly talk about and we can go into detail about, that at the end of the day, everything gets clean within the unit. And that we have eyes on it all the time, that automatic protective measures are taken in advance of anything that takes place.
Sorry to interrupt. We couldn't hear you at all. Lady, cannot hear you. Hear yourself from the people.
Thanks, Mike. Okay, that is a microphone, yeah. So let's try to get this.
Figure it out. Keep going. Otherwise,
Yeah. So
as loud as you can.
Yeah, you got it. All right, we can go on to the next slide. Yes, that's right. And that's what the standards in the testing that we perform that I'll talk about here quickly in a second, and Paul will get into more detail on, I think, in his part. So continue on. I think we've described enough the whole charging and discharging process, but the batteries obviously don't connect directly to the grid. We go through things we call power conversion systems or inverters, and then connect to the grid, and we have controls that coordinate all of this and provide us visibility from our 24/7 remote operations center that have eyes on these batteries at all times for both automatic and manual intervention throughout their operation. This is a zoomed in version of what we were trying to show you earlier. So you can see the battery containers on the left. They get connected underground on the DC side into the inverter or PCS units. And then that's where the energy gets converted from battery DC to grid AC. On the AC side, we connect then underground to our grid connection point, and that's where we plug in from a cable from the utility lines underground to our system. And then we have our communication and controls with redundant and fail-safe capabilities so that we have control of the system at all times. 3 points I want to get across here and are kind of the theme of system safety. One, as global deployments have exponentially increased over the last several years, this data ends in 2024 because that's when the last full set of published incident data is there, but there is ongoing publishing. Hope to update this in the near future. But 300 gigawatt hours. what 300 gigawatt hours represents is tens of thousands of times the size of the project that we're talking about putting in place here. As that exponential increase in system deployment has taken place, the incident rate has dropped and continues to drop. Since this data was published and in the last year and a half, the number of deployments have roughly doubled and the incident rate has continued to decline. And that's not by accident. That's because of development of standards like NFPA 855 in codes and testing standards and safety certifications out of UL that now govern how we design and deploy and operate these systems. We have now been able to significantly reduce the chance that anything happens. Now, you don't just care, and we can talk more about the codes and standards. Paul is on the NFPA 855 committee, part of the team that has developed these things through these years of experience on these systems. But what you care about—
Have you been here? Oh my God, I thought you were, I didn't know you were here.
Somebody's off mute that doesn't want to be.
Can you please put yourself on mute? Thank you.
But now through these standards, we also have test methods and we also have the real incident data. You don't have to take it from me. It went for all of these systems that get deployed today. We actually induce failures. We cause thermal runaway, which is the failure mechanism that everybody's concerned about in lithium-ion battery systems, which is a failure that cascades and fuels itself. We show, you can go on to the next slide. We induce a failure at the cell level. We would see how it spreads. We induce a failure at a module level. And we require that in all these systems, when a failure happens, it can't even spread beyond the module. Yet we go further and we induce failures until the most catastrophic thing that can happen within a container happens and the whole thing is on fire, even though it's highly unlikely that could ever happen. And we show that it won't spread from that container to another container. And I think Paul's got some images he can show in terms of what those tests look like. And so not only do we know what can happen in the worst case, and we have seen real world incidents in what comes out in air, what comes out in the water, if water happens to be used, which it's not supposed to be put directly on a container. That helps us mitigate certain concerns about runoff and environmental contamination. I mean, we can certainly get more into that if you're more interested or concerned about it. But the point is, we're not just guessing here. We know what happens and we can mitigate it and we can develop a safety and emergency response plan around it that has ultimately no impact to community safety or the environment, public health. So go ahead, one more. And then I can talk ad nauseum about our program. The standards are the floor. We go above and beyond that. It's safety by design. We have that validated by third parties like ESRG and others, subject to review by the local fire department, by the PUC and others. Our CPG will require us to comply with NFPA 855 and the latest standards that Paul and that committee is developing for the country and the world at large. And we put it through all the required testing and certifications. We have a rigorous quality assurance program. We're in the factories with these battery manufacturers. We have people watching them and validating their manufacturing processes, the end-of-line testing that happens before they ship to our project sites, and then testing them thoroughly on our project sites. I already mentioned 24/7 monitoring. We have eyes on these at all times. They're censored all the way down to the cell level, temperatures, voltages, everything we need to know about the condition of the safety of the system at any given time, such that we can cut it off if we feel necessary. And like Mike mentioned, we are in it for the long haul. We own and operate these systems. We're not just here developing it. We're not flipping this to somebody else. We are responsible for the maintenance programs. We are here on a very periodic and frequent basis with eyes on the systems, taking care of them, making sure that they're always functioning the way that they're supposed to be. And lastly, the thing we take most seriously is our engagement with the local authorities, the fire departments, and emergency responders, and familiarizing, making sure they're up to speed in the technology. I would like to point out there's a letter out there. We've had this engagement with the fire department already. They agree with everything we're saying. It's in line with what the latest and greatest is about this technology and its safety. But that's not the end of the process. We go through the design with them. We work collaboratively with them to develop an emergency response procedure. Once the project site is built, we bring them on site and we conduct familiarization and training. And it's not just us. It's experts like Paul and his team doing that. And then once we're in operations, like I said, we have that 24/7 response, and then we have folks that are experts, that are real firefighters that are standing by to support and help and ensure that if something ever did happen, what we're doing is isolating the area, ensuring nobody goes in. And what it amounts to is a fire that burns itself out. It's like a structure fire. If your neighbor's house is on fire, the things coming off of this are not any different and pose no greater risk to the community. And this has been validated through air quality monitoring and water testing in real world events. And again, don't have to take it to me. You can hear from Paul and others who have been on site during events like this. Turn it over to Paul.
Okay, we're at 7:06. Hang on. How much?
There's a lot of redundancy, so
yeah, a lot of redundancy. Come on up. You got to really talk loud here.
Yeah.
So come on up and give us your best New York.
Yeah, I'll do my best.
Yeah.
Can you hear me in the back? Okay, great.
Can we get Paul's information up here as well?
Yeah. So as you heard, going over the code standard, that actually drives a safety. It's a prescriptive measure that everyone needs to follow. So there's a list. Hey, you need to do X, Y, and Z. It's a list of different things that the developer has to follow in order to be compliant to the code. So some of it are very challenging. And Vermont, has one of the best codes out there, the gold standard. NFPA 855, the 2023 version. You guys adopted that, and we're in good shape. Regulatory infrastructure, our fire code is in very, very good shape. You mentioned something about failure rates before. One of the things that I just heard recently is that the failure rate is less than an actual plane crash happening. And that just came out recently. I'm like, wow, I didn't know that. I didn't do that, but I heard that somewhere. Anyway, that's a little bit about what we, if we can move on to the next slide. They're everywhere already. Battery energy storages are everywhere already. This is a high-rise building. You'll hear me talk a little bit about New York because that's where everything actually evolved from. We did 5 years R&D when we actually built out our code. That was a draft of what 855 wound up taking. Wound up taking that. Remember, we were looking to put them inside a high-rise building. When we put them outside, we're like, we're not worried outside. We were more concerned about putting them in the high-rise building. That was what our goal was when we first looked at these things. We worked with the military, we worked with NASA, we went down to Washington, D.C. We got a lot of information from them. And then that's how we started to figure out what the hazards were and all the different things, how we're going to actually make sure that these things, well, you can never say never, but we're going to try to eliminate the fact that, well, like nothing, you can't even say this building can never go on fire, right? We all have to say that, hey, there's always a risk, but you want to reduce the risk significantly. You can go to the next slide. They're already out there. You're going to see them in your concerts out here. Mobile systems are coming here. They're already out there. They're actually, this is a moving target. This one really is going to be a little bit more. This is at least stationary at a location. We're dealing with this problem right now around the country. You can go to the next slide. This is one of our first installations back in 2018 in New York City, still up and running. No problems at all. New York City has not had any fires at all. Again, the reason I'm talking about that is because it's the basis of what you have currently in your code. This here is an elementary school. You got residential buildings there. This is a commuter line. We haven't had any issues on that. We're constantly monitoring, tremendous amount of training that we did. We actually tried to over-engineer what we put in there. There was nothing to follow. We were actually the ones who were creating the plan as we were flying. And we did a pretty good job because we haven't had any incidents right now. I was just kind of showing you a typical, so this is what a battery storage container would look like. Some people have never seen what they look like, but this is what we would look like, and they would be next to each other, across from each other, from side to side. You go to the next slide. And this is what it would look like on the inside. The building blocks there from the cell, a group of cells make modules. A group of modules make a rack. Now, each one of them have a performance listing, a performance test. That means you cannot have any counterfeit batteries. During my time with the New York City Fire Department, I worked with the FAA and the Department of Transportation on lithium-ion safety for planes, for batteries that are going up in planes. And at that time, we knew they were counterfeit batteries coming into the United States, from outside the United States. And they were making their way to supply. That cannot happen here. All of the work that's done here is by a nationally recognized testing laboratory. They take a look and they actually do the performance test themselves, make sure they pass. One of the things that you all brought up, Joe, in this particular listing here, they actually they fail a cell. Single cell failure, they have to show there's no propagation spread within the actual module itself. You can go to the next. Oh, balance of the system. This is all being controlled by a battery management system that can remotely shut it down. You know how I know it works? Because when we go out and do inspections, we tell them, remotely shut it down and show us. We do the functionality and safety test every time we go there on an annual basis. Make sure that on game day that these things are going to work if there was an event that takes place. Okay, you can move on. This was, we kind of already went into this. I really want you to focus on this one thing down here. You on 9548. Don't remember, it's large scale practice. This was a game changer in New York City. When we weren't getting the proper data that we were looking at itself, the data was all over the place. A good test is repeatable. If you don't have repeatable tests, the data's all over. So we said, take your full system and burn it. They thought we were crazy. We said, burn your full system and let's see what happens. They walked out, but they wound up walking back in because it wound up going into NFPA. They agreed with us. Large-scale fire testing in the fire protection engineer world is not often done. It's a very, very, very expensive test. You can go to the next slide. This is the next slide is a picture of how it's done. It's done by a national recognized testing laboratory. And what they do is they actually set up containers in the orientation on how they're going to be put out. And they have to show if this thing were to catastrophically fail, that the fire or the event stays within the actual container itself. They have to prove it. It's videotaped. It can go to the AHJ, the authority having jurisdiction for them to take a look at. And it's a data collection test. It brings out heat release rates and a lot of other things that come out of it, smoke and different signatures of the smoke itself. So if this one is here, you can see there's very little separation distance. So that heat transfer, you're concerned about that heat going to the one next to it and putting that one on fire. But if they want to go, you know, the code says 3 feet. If they want to go closer, they have to prove it. They have to actually prove it. You can see there's about 6 inches in between here. And then they also have to show that the heat wouldn't transfer this way either. So this is a very rigorous test. When we first put it in NFPA 855, the manufacturers were bitching and moaning, excuse me, about it because it was so expensive. We didn't back down, and sure enough, we actually thought we may have ruined the industry as a result of this, because unintended consequences when you ask for something that's something like this, we thought maybe we had ruined the industry. But they actually went in and they did their R&D and they started redeveloping to make sure they can control the heat. And now we have many of them have successful testing that is done by Underwriters Laboratory, Intertech, and other national recognized testing laboratories. Next. Okay, we talked about site-specific. They're going to sit down with the fire department. They're going to make sure that they review the emergency response plan. We want the fire department to say, hey, we don't do this. Okay, and what do you do? We want to make sure they review it, and we're going to make sure it's tailored to their operations on their side. And that's important to make sure that they are part of the whole conversation. We're going to look at their equipment and any training assessments that they're going to need on their end. We always recommend that they do at least an annual training. Annual training is important because we understand there's turnover. There's new people that come in, so we need to make sure that they are up to speed on it. Next one. I wanted to show you this because I've been to 5 incidents that have taken place. Been to 5, dressed like this. You can see from this vantage point where I'm taking the picture. So I'm about 100, maybe 150 feet away from this one here. So the reason I show you this, you can see there's a fire here. And the back here, this went back and forth between 6 to 8 hours. It's not a sustained burn. It went on fire, it went dormant, went on fire again, it went dormant, and went fire again. And finally, it burnt out. And and they didn't put a drop of water on. In the fire world, we burn off energy all the time. In the middle of Manhattan, I'm burning off propane tanks. That's energy. We're burning it off. So that's not unusual to allow the energy to be burnt out. And that's what they did. They allowed it burned out, and it stayed right within the actual container. Proof of concept that 9540A, large scale fire testing, actually works. That was proof right there that it worked.
They didn't even have an engine at the location. They had the chief there monitoring itself. They actually took some gas samples. It's online. If you go to Warwick, you go to their homepage, and they have all the gas samples there. Everything, it was about 20 feet outside the fence. Everything was below toxic levels that could hurt people. So that was all monitored. For 3 days, they actually monitored. They went above and beyond the monitored. All right. So a lot has gone into the code, but the big game changer and the validity of the safety came from the large scale. That was very, very big.
Hang it in there, man.
Okay.
Good. All right. So hold on. One question at a time. Come on up.
Work. All right. So hi. So I live here. I'm a 7th generation Vermonter. I live out by Button Bay. I want to apologize. We didn't really want this to be adversarial. That's not how it's supposed to be. But one thing that's been really difficult is that this has not felt collaborative from the beginning from our perspective. We really heard nothing about this until things were filed already with the PUC. And you had your intent to file an application, and the city had no information for us, and we all got really concerned. So that's why we're here, and that's why we're having this meeting, and that's why we're a little angry, to be honest. But I wanted to just back up a little bit and just ask this question. The location is an interesting choice. And I will say that's really my issue. I don't have a problem with your technology at all. I'm a physical therapist, retired. I have a lot of science background because of that. You know, I worked at the medical center for 23 years and been PT for 35. It's not the battery that's really the question. It's not the safety of the battery. You've already proven all of that. You know, it's pretty low failure rate. It's the location, because you are fighting this battery where we have housing on the side, and where we have our EMS services on one side of the battery and the fire department on the other side. Where I live, I can't get to the federal highway on 22A without going by your site. That also means our ambulance can't get to either of the hospitals near us if there's a fire or a problem at your site. Even if you just close the road for a little while, they wouldn't be able to get where they need to go. That location is really the concern. I have just a couple little things here. I'm curious whether you are aware that there is potentially sacred ground in that site, that I wondered if an archaeological survey's been done. It's already next to a cemetery where many of our ancestors are buried, and we would want to be sure that that's protected. It's near volatile chemicals and all of the businesses that are already on the road. And I do fear that code's not keeping up with technology. I hear you, Paul, that you're following all of the code. But I have fire people in my family here in the US and in the UK. In the UK, they're doing some very different things around these batteries. So the EPA recommends 330 feet around all of these things, right? And this isn't possible here. I know this is a smaller one, and so that doesn't technically apply, but there's not much space around your lot where you're proposing to put these. In the UK, they're actually going further. They're going up to a mile now, these larger ones, not 330 feet, a mile, because they have seen some problems, and they're far ahead of us in green energy, in terms of battery storage, in terms of solar and wind. So I just want to bring those points forward and ask for some responses on that. And then just lastly, I'll say, Paul, you and I share the same hair color. So I'm curious what will happen. You know, and then you have other risk mitigation companies that you work with, but Paul and I aren't going to live that much longer, right? Because of our hair color. So what happens if that company goes out of business? Who does your risk mitigation then? So a lot of things, but I'm trying to be polite and not take all your time.
Understand. There were captured.
So yeah,
a few questions.
Yes, stand up.
Yeah.
Okay. Look at that. Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
So location, archaeological concern, what happens if we go away? I'm going to let this side of the table handle those questions. This side of the table, we're going to talk about access codes and EPA. I'll start on this side of the table.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So access codes, we discussed that with the fire department. And again, for all the other risks and other things that could happen, this wouldn't be the only possible thing that could shut down the road. It's low probability, and we have a plan. And we will further flesh out that plan such that access that is required can happen. As Paul was showing, given the proximity and how far this would already be set back off the road, we are confident we can establish a plan that allows particularly emergency access through the area if needed in the event of an incident. that is manageable. I don't know if you have any other thoughts on that.
No, I think the entry committee can read through an ambulance tips and then use it. I didn't think that would.
Was there?
We have a big truck that.
Correct.
That had an accident right there, and Canton Road was shut down for how long? Do you remember?
Like 3 hours.
At least 3 hours. This happens, that.
And these things happen, if that is going to happen. You just said that this happens, I guess, is what I would say, and that, to Paul's point, this is less than the incident rate of an airplane crash, and I'll repeat that.
Okay, so,
how many times?
so let's go, can we go for another question?
Yeah.
I want to address her with England. Actually, they're looking to go to 855. We're ahead of them. We're ahead of England. They realize that they're behind us.
Yeah.
They didn't have the large scale flight testing, so they're going back to 855. They're like, oh wow.
They are.
For testing.
So the boundary, and I'll address that, the 330 feet from the EPA came out after the Moss Landing fire. A 1 gigawatt hour inside facility where the whole thing burned because it was an old technology, not built under these standards in the isolated containment. This is 25 megawatt hours that we're talking about here, not a gigawatt hour. And the perimeters that we're talking about here are akin to what Paul showed in Warwick, Rhode Island, not 330 feet. It is not necessary. It is not what the code recommends. And that's not where things are headed. It's based on the site and the technology, which we go through in-depth review and analysis for as we develop the project and present and demonstrate that we comply to the requirements of NFP5. To answer the codes question, I agree with you 100%. It drives me crazy. The codes are always way behind where the standards are that are being developed today, and it's a problem. But we address that by committing to meeting the industry best practices and where the codes are today. And that's what we do at all of our projects. And by the way, a PUC is ahead of that too, because what they say, like by the time we have to meet the requirements, they already say to the latest NFPA 855. So they automatically advance. And so we're not going to be behind. We're already going to be held to the latest that's coming out.
Okay, I'm going to take the archaeological question and we're going to put that on the head. So we'll get a more detailed answer for that. Who's next?
Yeah, so, if we have a slide in here that can show the proposed project area. I think that would help, yeah.
But in the meantime, who has the next question? Mel, run up.
Ron, I wondered if I had a question. I actually have about 7 or 8.
They're very short questions. First off, how many employees are going to be at this facility?
So like it's a remotely operated facility.
So the answer is 0. Nobody's going to get a job relative to this facility.
That is incorrect. There will be jobs associated with the operations and maintenance and construction of the facility.
Okay, so no jobs at that facility. So 0
employees. Is this facility going to be hooked up with city water and sewer?
No.
Is there any sound that comes out of this thing? Is there any humming or anything like that?
There's fan noise from the inverters and the chillers on the battery units. We conduct a sound study as part of the PUC process and have to demonstrate that the sound levels are below state statute. And we will address that even further to the extent that it's a concern of the community.
So
I would guess.
Yes.
Yeah. And how loud are the church?
At the source, which is 1 meter, and sound dissipates at a square law, and we can go into all of what that means. But it's roughly 70 decibels. I don't know that we've done a sound assessment at the property boundary of where this is going to be. If it's in excess of levels that are unacceptable, then we have mitigating features and sound barriers that we put in place so that it's not a problem.
The public utilities process will require us to consider sound as part of our aesthetic review.
I do live on Canton Road. I don't know if I'm going to hear it. I certainly hear the air handling equipment on top of some precision. It's extremely annoying, all right? And so sound is important. It's important to me, and I'm sure that people who live closer, it's even more important to them. So somebody needs to really understand what the impact is on sound.
Yes.
This is a 5 megawatt facility.
5 megawatt in power, 25 megawatt hour in energy.
Does this site lend itself to ever be any larger than 5 megawatt?
I don't know. I don't think so. The only thing that we would do, in all likelihood, so we have to go through an interconnection process with GMP that identifies what we're allowed to interconnect at, and then wouldn't be able to go beyond what the local system can handle. What we might do in the future as the batteries, like your phone, batteries degrade, at the beginning of life, maybe you have 100%, maybe by the end of life, you have 75 or 80%. What we can do is add a battery container to help offset that reduction in energy, but it's not materially going to change.
So I'm going to receive that as an I don't know. I really wonder about.
So it's a concern.
This is a 5 megawatt facility.
Yeah.
Right? And what I was just curious about. And if you can't answer the question, it's okay with me. The question is can this site, based on the understanding, your knowledge of the site and the transmission capability, can it be larger than 5? That's just, you think, can it be?
Could they expand it in the future?
That is not the intent. No.
I didn't ask what the intent. I'm asking
if we did expand it, we have to get a new certificate of public good, a new system impact study with Green Mountain Power.
So the point is
it's not going to be expanded.
Constraints to your knowledge right now that limit this to 5 megawatts. That's all.
I mean, I think there are system constraints that really kind of top it out at roughly 5 megawatts. Okay. Yeah. It's really not useful larger than
2025 taxing utilities will change in 2025. Do you have a 5 megawatt facility in Vermont operating right now? What is your property tax bill on that utility?
So we have 2 projects under construction. We don't have any operating in Vermont right now. We have 2 projects under construction and none operational, so we haven't gotten a property tax bill yet. The state of Vermont does have a uniform capacity tax that was enacted by the legislature, and so we pay that to the state education fund.
I understand that, but I know that you pay your education fund directly to the state of Vermont. I'm talking about municipal taxes.
Right.
You'll be a part of our grand list.
So the state actually governs that as well.
I understand that. I understand that you actually pay the city. The municipal tax is portion of it goes directly to the city.
Yes.
I'm quite sure, certain of that.
Yeah,
I know that the evaluation methodology changed in 2025. What I'm curious about, let me just ask you this. How much does this project cost? What's it cost? I won't hold you to the pen.
We are very early in the development of this project. Okay. We don't actually know how much it's going to cost yet. We don't even know if we're going to build it.
What would the municipal property tax bill be on this? And the answer to that question is you don't know. And that's okay. It's okay.
Well, I think the answer is when we find out how much it'll cost, we'll do the math and we'll pay our tax bill.
I understand. You're totally missing my point. You really don't. The other question you brought up this elementary school and this diesel facility there. Is there any compensation, any special compensation being made to the elementary school? Do you pay any? Is there any compensation made to the municipality, made to the school? We're going through a sewer upgrade project, and we're going to use half of our solar, and so we're going to use half of the credit on our Green Mountain Power account. I'm wondering if there's any room in that, in the profit that you all have by buying cheap power and selling it to the grid. Is there any way to get credit against school or against a municipal facility from the profit that you're making for the city hosting such a facility?
I mean, in that case, we're providing backup power to the school. So in exchange for the real estate, we eliminated the need for them to spend multiple millions of dollars on a diesel generator to provide backup power to that school. And so they got clean energy and they got backup power.
Shared savings.
So
This facility does not need to be connected to water and sewer, all right? But obviously it does need to be in reasonable proximity to transmission lines, all right? Did you go through any kind of internal siting process relative to why this particular site, which yes is in the industrial district, but that particular lot in that industrial district abuts a residential district? There are other lots in the industrial district that don't abut residential property. So I'm really curious about why this particular site and why not next to the Velco plant, why not next to the water tower, why not in Vergennes, depending on whether we're 1,200 acres or 1,600 acres. I think there's all kinds of different places where this could be. And I'm just wondering if you all are open to talking about alternative sites in this one. Thank you.
Why don't we just break? You guys can post responses. Does that make sense? Or what do you want to try to respond to that?
I mean, it is kind of categorically fits within the framework of the kind of sites that we look for. If you know landowners at these other locations and they fit within the criteria for a good site, and you'd like to introduce us to those landowners and they are open to leasing us their property, then we're very happy to have that conversation.
That's something I was spending the next 5 months. Totally hear you. Okay, we'll address that work and we'll get this on the web. Sir, what should come up next?
It's just told to be loud.
How are you? I am a former disaster recovery engineer for Bank of America. And I've worked with higher batteries. Also, thank God they hired a secretary to deal with problems. Because one of the things I was curious about, and I appreciate you guys coming, is that the experiences that we had at the Twin Towers, the batteries helped us help with the issue. So, one thing I learned that day is that you can have all the systems in the world hooked up to it. Once you lose communication with it, what you plan, how fast is it going to be for you to get down here to see what's going on? That's the first one. Because if you lose your remote connectivity, and your backup is snowstorms, you have the cell signals work for you to get the signal. Someone's going to get paid in the night. I'm making that assumption. So I'd like to understand a little bit more, okay, when it totally goes bad, how long it's going to take you, and then how long it's going to take you to move on. That's the first. Second thing is, what I know about these units is it depends all about the cooling. How many stations there are, how fast they spin up, and how long you keep that argument. That's the desperate thing. I'm sorry. Lastly, one of those things I've heard, I love what we're doing with technology. The standard came out from 9/11. A lot of the standard we thought, which is fantastic. But still, those containers can get hot. And if you have one building in one area, and it burns long enough, it's going to go to the other. So those are my questions. Thank you so much.
Okay, you bet. So I just want to understand, you have the question about cooling and the spinning up. Sorry, what was this? You're asking about the decibel levels? Okay.
Yeah, because of those fans.
Yeah, okay, well, let's start there. that, yeah, you got it. That one, we characterize that and have sound data from each of the chiller units. Basically, they're similar to air conditioners and the same fans, and they run a coolant loop that goes through the batteries and keeps the batteries cool, which is part of your other question. You know, that's that like 75 decibel range that it can get up to at full bore. But we, in our sound analyses that we will be part of the public submission to the PUC, will analyze all of that and show how it affects at it, not just a bulk level, but a tonal level, like, because those tones can what really get you. That's all part of that analysis, and we have to mitigate down to an acceptable level. On the communications loss, so we have redundant communication means in all of our systems. It depends on the location and what's available for landlines versus cell and satellite, whatever. We have a complete loss of communication. We shut the site down. Like, it automatically shuts down. There is no, it is designed to fail safe. So if we've lost touch with it and we can no longer monitor it and understand what's going on, it knows it's lost its connectivity and its lifeline to our 24/7 operations center, shuts itself down. It's not an emergency. When the batteries are not charging or discharging, nothing's happening. They're not creating heat internally. You're not relying on the other systems that we're monitoring to ensure that they're running to keep the batteries safe, like that self-contained container system I talked about. Because even internally, to your point about the batteries getting hot and things cascading, one, if the cooling system fails for some reason, again, automatic shut. If we reach a temperature level that is unacceptable, but it's well below the band of like reaching a thermal runaway event and a fire, we shut down. If for some reason everything fails and like we're operating and we hit the worst case scenario, that's where that NFPA or UL 9548 testing, which is required under NFPA, shows us that, you know, if it's a single cell failure, it's going to stay in that module. If it's a fire for some reason that gets to the whole container, that's where we get to that worst case. That is the whole point of that 9548 testing, is understanding and validating that we don't have cascades.
Thank you. Great. Next person. What coming up? Yeah, thank you. My name is Chris Cadmus. I live here in town. Paul, thank you for your contribution. That answered a lot of the questions I had regarding the safety issues. There's one that I don't think we need to get into because of all the self-contained. The biggest concern that I haven't heard this addressed tonight, talking about trying to cover all contingencies. And a lot of talk has been about the World Trade Center. I looked in and I saw security fence around there, but no security guards. And what if somebody put out 4 or 5 pounds of C4 next to one of these things? Then, I mean, in this day and age, that's something that's got to be done. The other thing that I'm surprised to find out is that going along with all the efficiency that we're hearing about this, it's a small, relatively small unit, 5 megawatts, and we're supplying chillers and fans, and chillers need compressors, and that eats a lot of electricity. So they're running 24 hours a day, presume. So I'd like that addressed to that too, because that's got to be figured into the equation.
It certainly is.
I can,
yeah,
I can, great question. Thank you for the compliment. And I do dye my hair, by the way. Yeah, and the code can only address reasonable worst case scenario. But if you had a bomb that went off there, I think the bigger problem is the bomb, not the actual battery going on fire.
Yeah.
Right? I think that's
well, it could cause other things related to.
Yeah, but I would be more concerned about secondary devices and things of that sort. So, just to give you.
Please, yeah.
The question I have is about the fire department, and it says, who would train fire department? You?
No. Experts.
It's Paul. Will Paul do it?
Paul's company and the other fire department, like firefighters and industry experts on his team.
And the question was, who pays for it?
We pay for it.
Additional training and equipment that our fire
Respond to the need for additional training or equipment.
Yeah, so whenever we do a training, we always ask the mutual aid companies, the ones that would possibly responding with them. We even ask the police department to come by. We ask the Office of Emergency Management to come by. So anyone that may be a stakeholder at an event, we want them there. It's important that we get them there so they fully understand what's going on. The second part of the question was, equipment. Yeah, there is no special equipment right now. Nothing that is needed by fire. Nothing at all. As I said, if there was special equipment, New York City probably would have had 1,000 of them already. They got zero. They'd have no special equipment on their apparatus
The fire, just about the fire chief, I had a conversation, I asked him that question, asked him the question. Right now, he said, there is no equipment that he needs. So it doesn't
Right, the standards, and I may be missing something, but what I found from reading those, the self-contained breathing apparatus required as well as our protection suits. So where did I find that, and what might have misunderstood?
In order for your volunteer to be in service, they have to have self-contained breathing apparatus. For every structural firefighter, they have that structural firefighting gear. This is a heat event for them, so they need the what? Yeah, this is why we don't want them to interact with them. We don't want them to their bunker gear does not have arc protection in there. We don't, in the fire service, the one thing that we do respect is electricity.
Yeah.
We respect that, but we don't want them in there. We don't want them opening up the cases. Matter of fact, they're locked up. Yeah, no, that's for people that are working. We totally disagree with that because I don't want the fire department opening up.
So you disagree with the National Fire Protection Association standard?
Yeah, I disagree with them saying that they want the fire department. I sit on that committee. I'm telling you that they don't want the fire department opening up these things. They're not trained in it. I wouldn't send my people in there. No way. Absolutely not.
So do they sit there and just watch it?
So yeah, so they want to take an interactive role, as I mentioned before. I burned off energy many, many times. So what we've seen, and believe it or not, the higher the state of charge, the more energy in there, the more energy, the hotter it burns, the less smoke you actually have as a result of that. We've seen that. We've seen that, and that's what happened in Warwick that I showed you there. We saw that wasn't much smoke attached to the actual flame. So the more complete combustion that we have, the less smoke we got coming off of it.
It's about the response time for your group to get to this. To advise. And the other question I have, as these batteries age, how do you continue to monitor?
So in terms of response time, we have an arrangement. So part of the training of the fire department, the first responders, emergency response, they are here, they are trained to get there, and then we dispatch our emergency response team immediately as well. We will generally have folks here on site within 4 hours, but we will be on the phone and communicating with them, and that is part of the collaborative emergency response plan. It is standard. I'll let Paul speak to his view on that in other parts of the country.
Yeah, and this is exactly what is done in the New York City area, where they have a telephone number they can call, right? No one's going to be sitting there watching this thing all day. We just told you it's less than a plane crash, so it's kind of like, and most of the people are really my age. I said it to a younger group; they had no idea what I'm talking about. Kind of like the Maytag salesman, right? And I had a lot of young people like. So anyway, so you're really going to be putting someone 24/7 to be sitting there for something that highly unlikely it's ever going to have an event at all. So if we're doing it, we have people from Orange County, New York, that would be probably right now close. We're actually building out a team. Hopefully, we'll get some people out in Albany because this is a mandate in the state of New York that we need to be there within 4 hours. It's not mandated here, but it is mandated in New York State that we need to be there within 4 hours. So, and total transparency, they're not putting the fire. They're there to assist the incident commander, but they will be in phone contact with them immediately once they make that phone call. We just had it in New York City, not this past Sunday, the Sunday before Memorial Day weekend. Had a false alarm, they called us up. We looked at this closed circuit TV, we looked at the battery management system. We said, nothing's going on, we see nothing on the closed circuit TV. The chief's like, wow, this actually works. We got to the location, they were out of there within 10 minutes because they had confirmation from us that we saw nothing in the battery management system. So they're basically looking at a container. And they don't know what's going on the inside, but we know what's going on in the inside because we're looking at the VMS. It's proof of concept that it works. That whole thing now is proof of concept that we can get the fire service right back in service and back to the firehouse so they wouldn't create a gap in the fire service coverage.
So about the battery as they age, how's that?
How the batteries age? Yeah, so that's part of our routine maintenance and monitoring. We do semi-annual and annual tests to monitor the degradation. It's a natural thing. Batteries are expected to age, but as Mike mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, these systems are designed to operate for 20 plus years. We are not cycling these things and even putting them at the running them even like you run your phone, or certainly not the way you run your car. This is a 5 megawatt, 25 megawatt hour battery. That means it's designed to discharge slowly over that 5 hour period. We're not doing fast charging. We're not like really stressing these batteries the way a lot of other systems get stressed. And so we, through our normal monitoring systems and our normal testing, we're observing it and understanding its state of health and how it evolves. But again, it's not that kind of aging process is normal and not a major concern from that perspective.
Let me actually.
Yeah, I'm just looking at where there are different plants. It looks like you expand. So one location says once get it in. Says, can we expect it to keep growing if you're happy with it? That helps.
I mean, I think generally speaking, like large utility scale battery storage is going to be an increasingly common technology. Yes. I mean, just as solar has expanded and wind has expanded and all clean energy technology has expanded, this is a growing industry.
So well, the question is, will there be more locations in Vergennes? I think that's what you're asking. Yeah. So
I mean, we have
an expansion application. We're putting a second location in town. That's the question.
a second location in town.
So thinking about the places you already have 3 locations in Virginia. What's the chance of you wanting a second if this one does well? That is kind of the question.
I don't know. I mean, this is something that we're not even contemplating yet.
But you used the example that you're putting 3 in one location.
I think it was.
Well, 3 in one town.
Well, this is. I'll take the next question.
Well, sorry, the point there is that
in one city.
Right? Yes.
Okay, this is one city.
Because they asked.
Swear, we're like small garage. We put so much inside.
I cannot promise that there won't be a second battery in Vergennes at some point in the future.
Right. Yes.
We were asked. Sorry.
This is to talk about this project, though.
Okay. And I know you guys picked the location. My question is, can't you better chase it to me versus next to the solar field, versus next to the high school, which is another solar field, versus where we're gonna decommission our septic system, part of our sewer system, which you can have all the drinking water. You'd have to do the remediation of the grounds. Now to help us.
It's a vacant lot.
Right.
It's industrially zoned.
Yep.
And it offers the benefits in that location that we need to offer with the system. No, not our benefits. No.
who is a bad golf shot away from that site,
Okay,
right? Have you been there yet?
yes,
You have. Did
Yes.
you see when you're going towards 22A, there's a house literally 200 feet away from where you want to put this? That's a yes or no question.
yes.
Okay, did you see that there's a house
I mean-
over there with a big lot that they have permitted to put 5 houses there? Right? Okay, there's another place that's an inn. Right, that's my opinion. Right, so now if I'm having a wedding, now also 7 decibels is the same amount of a car engine running.
That's,
Because I just looked it up.
yeah, 1
So
meter
it's-
from, not a proper boundary.
Right,
Mischaracterizing that.
That's annoying as all get out.
Yeah.
Right? And I've been on your side of the table, did this with Starbucks and community meetings, I've been in that seat, I filled in. But I like the technology, I don't need it here, right where you want to put it. Right? I will find you another location, give me your parameters, and I will find the person that will rent you the property in something similar to this, but not right next to me. My insurance will not cover your fire. I talked to my insurance agent. If you have a fire, I can't have an outdoor event if there's toxic gases coming off the battery. Don't tell me there's not toxic gases coming off the battery, because there are, because that's why they have to have PPE. You might have been 150 yards from that fire, you were not downwind. Right? If I'm downwind, I can close my business for how long? Till the fire's put out? You don't want to touch the fire, right? So we're gonna let it burn out. My insurance does not cover that unless your fire burns my property down. My business continuation insurance doesn't cover industrial gases, which is what that would be. So unless you start a forest fire, which then burns my property down, I got no compensation. I've got no recourse other than to sue you. You're gonna be an LLC, right? Why are you an LLC? Limited Liability Corporation. That plot, what assets are they gonna have? They're gonna pay rent to the landowner. They're gonna pay rent to you guys for the actual equipment. There's nothing to go after. There's no assets on that property that any lawsuit could go after. Because that's what an LLC is for. If it wasn't, then you wouldn't put an LLC in place and you'd personally sign liability. Right? And when the battery comes end of life, what happens? What happens when there's an accident and it's too costly to remove it? You could declare bankruptcy or get bought by somebody. They could spin it off, right? Make it into its own company with 0 assets, like hedge funds do. And then what? Then we're stuck cleaning it up. So are you willing to put a bond or an escrow account or some other type of assurances that is going to be cleaned up and then the other businesses around it be made? Because Simmons, right next to you, right across the street, Simmons Industrial, Simmons Precision. They are the biggest employer in the city, the biggest taxpayer in the city. If you get on fire, they've got to shut down. Because I shut them down by accident, burning a brush pile. And their fresh air system sucked in my brush piles. They have to completely shut down the facility. Are you going to cover them for up to 10 days when the project burns? That's why it's not the technology. I understand the technology. I understand the safeguards. Boeing has safeguards. Planes crash, right? Companies try and do the best they can. Spirit Airlines doesn't exist anymore. So what happens when you guys have a failure and then it's over? We're left holding the bag. Put the bag in a field next to the solar or somewhere where it's not in our little city. You guys did any of you guys eat at the local places?
We were.
Okay. Are you spending the night? You are? You're spending the night?
Yeah, hopefully, if I can find a hotel.
Well, we're the only one.
Oh.
So it's not that whole thing, right? Right, because you don't have any employees, so this is once a year to inspect the facility. You're not part of the community. And that's a concern for us. It's a concern for everybody here.
Absolutely.
All right. I like what you're doing. Don't get me wrong. I'm from New Jersey. I'm back to 148, so I get a little out. We like the technology. We need it. We just don't need it right at ground zero. Right. A little bigger one. That's all we want. That's it.
I'm sorry. Facility has the capability of having explosions and fires with what they manufacture. There wasn't an incident several years ago, and one of my best friend's son was seriously injured. Fire department was able to contain it. We don't, there's no, is there a guarantee? No, sir. There are no guarantees. So that's why I need to speak, and I apologize, Amy, if I interrupted, this is what I'm saying. But Simmons also had to start something that was impact works.
I do want to address one thing, the gentleman.
Stand
Yeah,
up.
no, and good point on there, but we wound up putting monitoring devices on all four sides. On all four sides. And the peak reading. No, I know. I just want to set the record straight. I get, listen, I don't want my neighbor's house going on fire if I'm having a backyard barbecue.
Right.
So I get
Your neighbor's house is more likely to catch on fire than the battery system. Your neighbor's house is more likely to catch on fire than the battery system is.
So it's not 70 decibels at the property.
Okay, stand up. 70 decibels at one, yeah.
70 decibels.
70 decibels. Every part of the picture is on.
70 decibels is at the equipment. Yep. Sound dissipates exponentially. Okay, so I just want to be clear. It's not going to be the sound of a car. You won't be able to hear like that.
I hear every car engine 70 decibels.
Yeah, and so you won't be able to hear the battery. Let's be honest.
It's not.
At 70 decibels at the inverter fans. Okay.
So
right.
Right, but the car driving down Panton Road doesn't do a sound study and establish mitigation measures to ensure there is not undue sound disturbance at the property line. That is exactly what we have to do as part of the PCG process. And that is what we plan to do for the project here. And that is exactly what we have done for all of our other projects. The sound gets mitigated, you won't hear it.
I won't hear any 20 decibels.
You will not hear a sound that the PUC determines to be undue to the neighborhood that the project would be located in. There is not a specific decibel level.
Okay, so we cut off Paul when he was trying to make a point about off-gassing, because you were mentioning that there's toxic gases. Yes, we know from our testing and from what these fires do, we know exactly what comes off of it, and we know to the extent at which it dissipates, and it is not a concern at the property locations. And you are at greater risk again from toxic fumes and gases coming from the fire at your neighbor's house than you are with the system.
All right, so we're at almost 8 o'clock. Do you want to go another 15 minutes? No, I'm just checking with this group. Do you guys want to go another 15 minutes? Does that work for you? Okay, great. Please.
For energy storage systems, locations where make sense for the community. Like that hasn't happened here at all, and you're hearing now after the fact, that we have other places where I think you can make less pushback. To us, we have to collaboratively and ask for maybe is there a better spot? Is there a good spot?
chosen because it was an opportunity that came to you. It's not in our city, even like it's very close to. I think that's the most important thing we should be focused on right now. I just feel like you've chosen this spot because you have an opportunity and it arose. And you would be getting a much better reception from us if you approached us the same way you approached these other towns when we wanted to work collaboratively and find a location. Right? This is not the location in the city. It is the right location.
Okay.
Keep going, there's another 15-minute please.
But I'm wondering if you want to pull up a picture with the where the
Sure. Yeah.
I'm gonna get right up close and personal in your space. So this is my property line.
Yes,
For people, okay. I'm sorry, people that are on the phone, you can't see me pointing. This is my property line. This is my buffering. This is all getting clear cut. We have permission to put a house here, a house here, and a house here. This is slightly downhill. There is no mitigating that can be done to preclude the impacts to the 5 homes that we're going to be putting here. None.
Because sound travels up. Believe me, I live above 70 decibels. Or
Then the public utility commission would look at that. The public utility commission would look at that and determine. Well, they're the ones that we have to work with by virtue of the legislation in Vermont.
I think the challenge for them is that they're going through what they have to go through. One of the things that we didn't do was we didn't have a meeting early on, and we should have done that. We did try to schedule something. We started trying to schedule something in May. We finally, actually, we started in April.
But when I came to the council in January, and I came to the planning commission in February and March, and the city council in April. I mean, I appreciate this isn't there, but the city needs to own the responsibility that the city didn't act in that 40-day period.
It wasn't mentioned in town meeting.
I know.
I mentioned that.
Please.
It's not about where.
I like this project. I wanted to go through, but is there a world where you do take some more time for implementation? That's clearly what I'm hearing. But I haven't heard any like it's one or no, it's not. It's possible.
I mean, we have been looking. We've actually been trying to develop a project in Vergennes for over 5 years now. We have evaluated a lot of different sites in and around the city. And this is the first one that we found that worked for development reasons, for electrical reasons, and for all the kind of criteria, which are like very numerous for like what we look for to kind of develop and deploy a storage project. And so, you know, the company's been around for a long time. We've been doing business in Vermont for going on 6 years, and we have looked. And this is the site that we found.
It actually doesn't help us. It's going down the way we use.
That's factually incorrect. That's factually incorrect.
I mean, you're not working in grid mount power. You're buying energy and it's really cheap, and you're selling it back and it's really
No, that's not how it works.
Contract side.
Somebody respond to that. Stand up.
Yeah, I mean, I think I explained it in the beginning that these projects are interconnected at the distribution level. There's a contract with the utility. All the contracts that I'm aware of in the state, not ours, but others that I've seen kind of publicly, Essentially, the utility pays the battery provider sort of like a rent per month. And then the utility gets all the benefits. So it gets all the wholesale, that market differential benefits, all the peak shaving benefits that I talked about, and all the kind of distribution grid infrastructure benefits. And so it's not necessarily the company that's getting those direct benefits. They just get sort of the rent rate.
Differential in what they're saving and what they're getting in rent.
For those contracts, I don't know. But you know, a company makes a profit. But the utilities in the state and the Public Utilities Commission have said that these projects are beneficial for Vermont ratepayers, and that's why you see them develop Sorry?
How is it if you're not a partnership with Green Mountain Power?
So this project would have to go through the utility. It's not there's no way we could do this project just as, you know, oh, we're just on the wholesale market. That's not possible for this project structure at the distribution level. It's kind of a thing at the transmission level. You see big battery projects in southern New England. Those are what we call merchant. They're just participating in the market. They're not contracted with the utility. This is a project that would be contracted with the utility.
So why isn't the utility here?
Do you have?
We don't.
Because we're very early in the development of this process. We're very early in the development of this project, right? If we had a signed contract with them, yeah.
We're seeing really interesting.
That's a quick question. Over the 20 years, what is your projected profit?
The
company, you know what the projected profit is off of project, right? What do you expect to make out of Vergennes, Vermont?
In what, like what metric? We don't know. Because we don't know how much the project's going to cost, because we haven't bought the equipment yet. We haven't signed a contract with any utility yet. I don't know the answer to that question.
I don't know why you wouldn't. You must have a projected
Yes, all utility infrastructure is profitable. I would agree with that.
Thank you. Sir, please. No. Yeah, thank you. Sorry.
How do you bridge a storage system and distribution, right? No generator. You're focused on clean energy. Somebody give me a yes or a no.
Yes.
Show me with your eyes. You know, so you're focused on clean energy, right? Now, they ask how you recharge your system, and you do it at night. I don't know. Are you here because of the number of solar panels we have in my old farm? There's a proposal, I think, for, I say 30 acres, 300 acres. You know, technology, I mean, how are you regenerating and charging your batteries at night? It's not with fossil fuel.
We would not be the ones operating the battery. It would be the utility operating the battery at their discretion at the times that is most economic to do so. We would develop, build it, and hand the keys to the utility. Yes, it is a necessary tool for integrating clean energy onto the grid.
Show me that. You know, but the purpose of why Vergennes, why this down, and why not? No offense, a little better presentation. You want to sell me. You want to sell me. You. Well, selling.
I'm not selling you anything.
Question.
Yeah, please, yes. Can you stand up?
Sites,
No, but just so we can hear you. So you can stand, yeah.
you looked at other sites. It might be helpful to us to know the sites that you looked at and that you discounted because they weren't this or they weren't that, and because people are saying, well, why not here or why not there? Maybe you looked at them and they aren't good, but we don't know that. That would be, might be helpful.
Why don't I leave a stack of my business cards, and folks with site ideas happy to start an email conversation, or feel free to call me and we can chat through all this. Not sure I have a list of parameters, off the top of my head, but happy to chat through if people have ideas. Does that work?
That's great.
Okay, I'll leave my business card.
Sure. Yeah.
So regardless of the site, I just want to say that I appreciate the fact that we are very much trying to help our state of Vermont increase the amount of renewable energy that we have. In theory, it's great. And one of the things that I do understand about the Vergennes is the transmission lines come really full. So when you look at transmission lines, they're all red around Vergennes. And that's what that means is we can't have a solar project, can't have another big solar project because the lines are full. And they're not going to upgrade the lines. This is the cheapest way to increase the amount of electricity for everybody in the state of Vermont. And I'm really glad that we are collectively looking at how we can reduce our renewable energy to get off of fossil. So I'm proud that we can help the state of Vermont with this type of project. The state of Vermont has a really lofty goal of getting to a certain goal, and this is one of the ways to get there. So regardless of the site, I'm happy to hear that the safety features are looked at, the environmental things are looked at, the emergency planning is looked at, they're working with the fire department. I feel like everything is trying to check all of the boxes. This isn't something that's been willy-nilly put together. A lot of work has gone into this, and I really appreciate the efforts. And I'm sure listening to the community, they're here, but I just want to applaud your efforts. And thank you very much for coming tonight. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Great. Okay. So we're gonna bring the meeting to a close. And what I think I would like to be back with you, but perhaps and I'll talk with you guys about next steps, but it may make sense to do another meeting. Again, let's kind of work through that. I will take the information that came out of this and make sure that the Q&A, the questions that were asked and the answers that came back, I'll put that up on the web in writing so people can see that. And I don't know, closing thoughts, anything before we wrap up and let people go home.
No, I would just second Laura's offer. I mean, we can continue this conversation and we are happy to. So please, contact us.
So that they want to continue the conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah, and look, I'm city manager at Vergennes.org, and let's see. Hey, for people who want to use the elevator, it works now. Anybody wants to use the elevator? So like, it's right here. I'll show you.